Hello, everyone. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas. Welcome. Thank you for joining us on Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin alongside Chris Palma. Chris Palma, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, my friend.
Merry Christmas and happy holidays to you too, my friend. I hope you and your family have a good one. I hope everyone who watches has a very good holiday and a Merry Christmas. But before that, playoffs are, we keep saying playoffs, but they're coming.
Oh, yes. Oh, they are coming, my friend. So before we get into it, before we get into our recap, and you know what it is, it's rivalry week here on Let's Talk Football. You know, we live for the Ravens Steelers matchup. So, but before we get into any of that, we do want to say that this is part one of our two-part episode of week 16. Yeah, I had to just double check. Yeah, for week 16. So,
Yes.
our episode will be an interview with special guest Alex Kliss, and we will be talking Broncos and Chargers for that episode. That is a really fun one, and we hope that you watch that one too. So, but with that being said, Chris Palma, are you ready to get into our Week 16 recap?
Week 15 recap.
Week 15 recap. That is correct. Our Week
Yes.
15 recap.
Yes. The season's going fast enough, mate. Let's not rush.
I know. We gotta savor every game because when's the next time we're going to be seeing a lot of these teams, right? Because let's cherish them while we can. Let's cherish the last Thursday's game, the Los Angeles Rams and the San Francisco 49ers, with the Rams beating the 49ers 12-6.
Very stagnated game. Slow. It wasn't anything pretty. The Rams did what they needed to do. The Niners are broken. So kind of expected, but the low scoring from the Rams is more of a red flag than a green flag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 49ers are still technically alive, but sitting at 6-8, they have a tough road ahead of them if they want to make the playoffs. Um, let's move on to New Orleans, where the Commanders took on the Saints, and the Commanders won 20-19. They had the lead for a while, but New Orleans was slowly making the comeback and almost had it there at the very end. Oh, did I lose you?
Yeah, I lost you. I'm sorry. Which one did you talk about?
Oh no, the Commanders and the Saints.
Commanders Saints. Yeah, very close game from the Saints, but Washington needs to start getting into playoff mode as we move closer to the playoffs. They need to get into that mode now. Saints are more or less looking into next year.
Yeah, Saints looking at a top 10 pick in the draft next year, so we'll have to keep an eye on them in the offseason. In Washington, you're absolutely right. They have to get it into gear because January is right around the corner. So let's move on to Cleveland, where the Chiefs took on the Browns, taking care of business 21-7. But the bigger news here is Patrick Mahomes getting an apparent ankle injury, which was going to take his status to week going forward. But this is a pretty serious injury to keep an eye on, especially for Mahomes and the Chiefs.
Yeah, this isn't the first ankle injury that Mahomes has suffered. Keep that in mind. This is like the third or fourth high ankle sprain that he's suffered throughout his career, and this one seems to be pretty bad because he took a pretty nasty shot, from the two defensive linemen against Cleveland. I'm not going to say it was dirty. I'm not going to say it was legit, belligerent. I'm just saying it was a nasty shot, and it's tough to see, especially when an elite player goes down, and you can tell he was in some pain.
Yeah, so we'll have to just keep an eye on the status of Mahomes going forward. As of now, he is week to week, and Carson Wentz is the backup in Kansas City. So let's move on to Tennessee, where the Bengals took care of business against the Titans, 37-27. Again, another high-scoring outing by the Bengals. Not shocking by any stretch, but obviously their playoff hopes are pretty much shot at this point.
Yeah, no, they can pretty much kiss their playoff dreams goodbye. Not by any fault of Joe Burrow, of course, just by the rest of the team not playing well. Um, the Bengals stink has returned, in my opinion. They just beat up a even more depleted Tennessee Titans team.
Yeah, it's been a tough season for the Titans and the Bengals alike. But both should have a lot to look forward to next year. Hopefully, Cincinnati can get a good draft pick to really bolster their defense because that seems to be the biggest issue for them this year. Again, Joe Burrow putting up career numbers, leads the league in passing. Jamar Chase leads the league in receiving, but their defense is one of the worst in the league.
Mm-hmm.
So, with that, let's just move on to Houston, where the Miami Dolphins and the Houston Texans had a battle in the Superdome, but it was the Texans coming away victorious 20-12, low scoring affair. This was one of the games that we spoke about last week. I was expecting a little bit more from both of these teams.
Yeah, but that's kind of what can be said throughout like the season as like a holistic story. Like you kind of expected more from both of them. I know I expected more from at least Houston at the very least.
Mm-hmm.
Once Tua went down, the expectations from Miami have plummeted. But since his return, unless the expectations are just too high, like out of the gate, he was going to totally revive them. It feels almost like his return is almost it's too little too late. At
Yeah.
saying it kindly, it's too little too late.
Yeah, which is unfortunate because there's a lot of great players on Miami, and they're just not the team that they wanted to be this year. And Houston has really they've been winning, but it's been a very methodical approach throughout the season. Nothing too crazy. Everything's been very close. Even this game was a one-possession game. And we spoke about that last week. But man, Houston looking to be the fourth seed, depending on the road ahead, because they play the Chiefs this upcoming week, and then they play on Christmas Day against the Ravens. So that is a tough 2 games ahead of them, but we'll have to see where they are come January.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to the MetLife, where the Ravens played the Giants, and it was all Ravens all day, 35-14. This was the get right game for Baltimore, but obviously we'll talk more about the Ravens later this episode.
Yeah, this was a foot to the throat game. The Ravens should have stomped out the Giants, and that's exactly what they came out to do. I almost thought this was going to be a rest game from Baltimore because of how much ahead of them you guys are, especially playing in MetLife. But I was wrong. You guys just came out and bullied them all for 4 quarters. So good on you.
Oh man. Let's move on to Jacksonville, where the Jets took on the Jags in what appeared to be a tale of two halves. First half was a very ugly approach, but the second half we had a lot of fireworks from both these teams. Jets coming away victorious 32-25. I find it funny that literally the week after the Jets are mathematically eliminated, Rodgers had his best game of the year, and Devontae Adams had his best game of the year.
It's almost like bittersweet irony,
and it makes them like, oh wow, if only they could have done this throughout the whole rest of the year. It's gonna make the organization just believe in the Jets long enough where it's gonna tempt the idea of running it back with Rodgers next year. And God, I hope they don't make that decision.
Oh, the whisper has already begun.
Oh yeah.
I was talking to our friend John Conte at work the other day, and he was actually saying the conversation's already begun to run it back.
No.
It's already started.
Does he want it to run it back?
I didn't ask him. I don't want to know.
I kind of do want to know, so if you do see him, ask him.
I will have to ask him, and we're going to try and bring him on next year.
Oh, please.
But I hope for the love of God he hasn't drank out of that cup yet, and I hope he never does. I hope no one drinks out of that cup. I hope they move on and take that cap hit and draft a quarterback.
Yeah, we'll have to keep an eye on both teams this upcoming offseason. Let's move on to Carolina, where the Cowboys came and muscled up against the Panthers 30-14. Cowboys just showing that, they, I guess, are still technically alive in the playoff race, but not for long. This was Cowboys-Panthers. I was hoping to see a better outing from the Panthers, but alas, they're still growing.
Right. There's still a lot of growing pains in Carolina. For the Cowboys, it's another form of where was this all year? If where was this all year on both sides of the ball? It's You waited till now to beat up a 3-11 team to show what you're capable of, and it's it's too little, too late, and now everyone's looking at this like a sham.
Yeah. Jerry, I hope you're happy with the win, but I know you're not happy with the season.
Of course, he's happy with the win.
Of course he is. He's Jerry Jones. Let's move on to LA, where the Bucks took on the Chargers, and the Bucks came away victorious 40-17. It was a close game in the first half, but then the Bucks just took the reins. Mike Evans and Baker Mayfield have such a connection. It's I hope that they have a chance to be in the playoffs this year.
It's a second breath of life coming from Tampa, and it looks like another year of the Chargers stagnating to the end and coming to a screeching halt, and it's unfortunate to watch.
Yeah. Again, more about the Chargers in the part 2 of this week's episode. And speaking of which, they also play the Denver Broncos this coming Thursday, and the Broncos beat the Colts last week 31-13. So right now the Broncos sit at 9-5 and the Chargers at 8-6. This is shaping up to be a playoff game without the actual title of a playoff game.
Yeah, it's going to be a sprint to the finish in that division, man. But good on for the Broncos for a win moving forward.
Absolutely. So let's move on to Arizona, where the Patriots came to play the Cardinals, and the Cardinals took care of business 30-17. This seemed to be a very cut and dry game for Arizona.
Well, it's a must-win game, so it has to be cut and dry. You can't leave any open windows.
Oh yeah, especially when your favorites against the Patriots, you got to come away with a win. So good on the Cardinals getting a win. Let's move on to Detroit, which was in potential for game of the year, with the Bills beating the Lions 48-42. This was an exhilarating game to watch.
Yeah, it's a great game to watch, but again, I am so against this onside kick rule.
Yeah.
Having to tell the other team that an onside kick is coming is it's gonna be the downfall to special teams, because now you just have a straight shot for a walk-off touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen it in more than one game this year. I think that is one of the worst rule changes to come into this game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you, especially in a close game. The element of surprise is really what makes the onside kick. And
Correct.
So I agree with you that for them to announce it this year just kind of really deflates or the whole purpose of the onside kick. So I agree with you on that. But good on Buffalo getting a win, especially against really tough competition against Detroit. Let's move on to Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, where the Steelers came to play the Eagles in the Battle of Pittsburgh. But this was the Eagles' day, man. The Eagles won 27-13. But CP, what were your thoughts on this game?
This game was fun to watch. The Steelers, obviously they struggle defensively. It's good to, the Eagles, they're on a run right now. So it's going to be hard to stop them because they're in full motion. We are doing well. They are a step ahead of us.
Mm-hmm.
That's the competition right now. We're still fighting for a playoff win. They are favorites for a Super Bowl at this point in time.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to take everything with a grain of salt. We're doing well. They are the epitome of what a Super Bowl team is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Without a doubt, they are in that conversation. The Steelers, we need to fight for a playoff win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the down the line, the bracket is trying to form itself right now, and it's very interesting just seeing where teams are placing themselves in that bracket. So Philly, at this point in time, with this win and Detroit losing, both teams are sitting at 12-2 at the moment. So every game going forward is going to be huge, especially between these two. Whoever gets first place in the NFC, watch out, because that is huge.
Yeah, that's going to be enormous.
So let's move on to the final game on Sunday night, and that was the Green Bay Packers taking on the Seattle Seahawks in Seattle. But the Packers coming away victorious, 30-13. Man, Packers just look like a absolute. They look like a team no one wants to play in the playoffs.
I know I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs. They look like they finally hit that second gear that everyone's been waiting for them to hit, and I hope it's a second gear into a full stride for a playoff run. I like Jordan Love. I think there's a lot of promise in Green Bay, so I would love to see them make a deep playoff run again.
Mm-hmm. And it's hey, with a good quality win like that, they really set themselves up for January. And so do the Vikings, coming away with a victory over the Bears on Monday night, 30-12. Again, just sheer utter domination by the NFC North.
It's wild how much competition is coming out of the North this year.
Mm-hmm.
The Vikings are playing out of their minds this year. It's crazy to see.
Unfortunately for the Bears, they're not the ones in that conversation, but it's
They
everyone.
just keep falling into the wrong place at the wrong time.
They really do. And I wouldn't be surprised if they don't win another game the rest of the year.
I don't see it.
Oh, man. Okay, it's final game of this past week, week 15. The Atlanta Falcons and the Las Vegas Raiders. We spoke this game last week. We kind of knew that this was going to be a little ugly game, but Atlanta came away victorious 15-9. But I think the bigger story is Atlanta is now going to bench Kirk Cousins and start Michael Penix Jr. going forward.
It should be interesting with them going into playing New York. It should be a good game where he can showcase what he's capable of, and hopefully the Falcons see something in him where they can wrap a franchise around him, and hopefully Kirk Cousins will maybe be partial to a contract negotiation for a rearrange, because that's a lot of money to sit on the bench.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of questions going on with the Falcons, and that's why we spoke them last week. But they are another team where they have a lot of questions to answer in the offseason. And we are really going to keep an eye on the Falcons for the remainder of this year and for next year as well. So, with that being said, that is our Week 15 recap. Another great week of football, but you know what it is. You know what it is. Chris Palmer warming up the hands and stuff like that. But Chris Palmer, what are you ready for rivalry week? Round
Ready
two,
for
baby?
round two,
Round
my dude?
two, baby?
And just like we both said in the beginning of the year how possible it was, here it is. It's a game that decides the fucking division.
Literally, we say it every year. Every fucking year. And it just
Here it is.
It just happens to work out that way, right?
Right. Of course, if we fucking win, we clinch the division. If you guys win, you take a hold of the division. It's still open by half a game, but you guys are a win away from clinching the division. So it's like
whoever wins this wins
whoever wins this more or less wins the division. And here we are again. And we're going into Baltimore.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going in without TJ Watt.
Now, what was the injury on TJ Watt?
I believe something that had to do with his knee.
Okay.
I don't know that it was. I don't know. I didn't really see what the actual injury was. I just saw that he was day to day.
Let me take a look.
Yeah, I'm gonna take a look right now, actually, as well.
But even in the absence of TJ Watt, I know again the defense is not the same without TJ Watt. But
no,
you guys
but
still
our capabilities are way. They far exceed what they were last year when it comes to camaraderie and how we play, even with him.
Mm-hmm.
So George Pickens is still out, so that's unfortunate. TJ Watt is back to limited practice.
He has an injured ankle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it was an ankle injury. So it was probably a high ankle sprain. So I don't expect him to miss this game. I think he knows what goes into a Steelers-Ravens rivalry. I think he will find a way to play this game. Even if he is on restricted snaps, he will be in this game. Especially because of what rides on it. I hope for the betterment of a potential playoff win. If they are restricted, I hope he plays really, I don't want to say conservative because he is not a conservative player, but I would say play to your strengths versus try to force your will.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense, because he can force his will when there are good linemen in the league who are capable of restricting him doing what he's good at, and he has to force his stuff.
And
if you
his
can't,
helmet falls off, and yet he still goes for the
right,
sack.
right. Like, we have other people now on this team that aren't named Cam Hayward that can support and pick up where you need them to because of that injury. Nick Herbig, we got Joey Porter Jr., Cam Hayward, fuck, on the top of my head, I can't think of the other side. Patrick Queen, Minka Fitzpatrick in the backfield.
Course, yeah.
Our defense is Super Bowl caliber. Our offense is still remaining to be questioned because of the good stretch of time with Russell Wilson. But the minute we play someone who's been consistently in that Super Bowl conversation, it's a 13-point outing against Philly.
Yeah. And I mean, that's a tough matchup regardless, right?
For sure, it's a tough matchup regardless. It's just you know what you need to match up against going in. I'm not saying it was ill-prepared. It was just outperformed.
Yeah. And that happens. That's just the nature of sports, right?
Correct.
Yeah. It's funny, just, again, the way everything shapes up. And I think the thing with the Steelers, the defense without TJ Watt is obviously a very different defense with it, because he is that anchor. He's that focal point. He makes offensive coordinators have to game plan around him, right? And his absence is huge because that opens up more, and it even opens up like the running lane to that side of the field, right? It opens up the flat on that side of the field, right? Because before, it's like quarterbacks wouldn't really look to that side of the field because they just know TJ Watt's coming in on pressure right there. It's like the second I turn my head, and he's right there, and he's ready to just take your head off. And I know with Lamar, obviously, him and TJ Watt have had a lot of great outings against each other, a lot of great chase downs and shit like that. And, some are won, some are lost, right? And it all depends. I think for the Steelers, the biggest issue is not the front seven, but the corners. And I think Joey Porter Jr., he's been great this year, but on the other side, what was it? Was it Peterson? I want to say it is, or Patrick? Not Patrick Peterson, but
no, that was last year.
Yeah. I know your corners are just not up to par there, and that's where a lot of the yards can get lost, because it's like if teams have a good number one and number two wide receiver, they can just cook you, right? It's like for last week especially, it's like, okay, whoever is matched up against AJ Brown, it's a mismatch, right? Even if that is Joey Porter Jr., that's a mismatch every time. And then you also have Devonta Smith also on the other side, and it's like, who do you put on single coverage, right? So
we got Joey Porter, Dante Jackson, and Beanie Bishop.
Dante Jackson, that's who I was thinking of.
Yeah, Dante Jackson, then Corey Trice, and then our nickelback is Beanie Bishop.
Beanie, baby, Beanie. But
I like Beanie Bishop.
Beanie. But I still, even without the absence of TJ Watt, the Steelers' defense is still a defense that you have to respect, and respect that they are going to be a ferocious defense and get after you regardless who's on the field. Tomlin does a great job of, again, preparing everyone. And,
Preston Smith.
everyone's going to be at their fullest capability there. For TJ, I think really is up to him. If he's good enough to play even on limited snaps, sure, yeah, go for it. But if it's going to be at the expense of him being in the playoffs, I wouldn't risk that at that point. Because at this point, the Steelers and Ravens, we both set like playoff bound at this point. It's just all but written, right? It's just kind of a matter of where in the playoffs we stack up, right? But they're all kind of like we're going to be playoff bound, and I think for the Steelers, if you lose this game, right, and Ravens take the division, go to a wild card, I'd rather have TJ Watt be there in Houston and be ready for whatever team that if you guys go on the road or home. I'd rather whatever playoff game for the Steelers. It's like if that means he does not play this game, so be it. But like I would want him there on the field to give me my best chance to win the game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and of course with the absence of TJ Watt, Preston Smith comes in. Mm-hmm. And I like Preston Smith. He's good. He's a good second string, He's no TJ Watt, but he is still a presence on that side. Mm-hmm. So it is to almost every degree I agree with you that he almost probably shouldn't play this game. Mm-hmm. Just to,
I would leave the choice up to him.
It's going to be a game time decision. It's going to come down to Sunday morning during walkthroughs how he feels.
Exactly.
And even if he feels like I can already tell it's going to come down to can he play while his foot is numb?
Or like can he play in the boot?
Well, or can he tape it up so thick that it doesn't move?
Yeah, exactly. So
you know what I'm saying?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw that from TJ Watt.
Right, and that's what you see out of these elite players. You see that out of the Patrick Mahomes. You see this out of the TJ Watts. You see this out of the all-time greats. That's what you see is people playing through injury. But when you have a depth chart like the Steelers defense, it's more, in my opinion, it should be more accepted to let the next man come up and do what he's capable of. Preston Smith is a more than capable edge rush, mm-hmm. especially with Nick Herbig on the other side and Alex Highsmith. So those guys, they know what to do. Alex Highsmith has been on a rise of being mm-hmm. one of like the second in command in pass rush for the Steelers defense for the last couple years. Mm-hmm. And this year is no different. Mm-hmm. When it's not TJ Watt, it's Alex Highsmith in the face. Or it's Cam Hayward still because he's just big brother. Mm-hmm. That's just what it is. Again, it's just my concern is that offense. Is our offense. It will always be the concern because as good as we've been playing, it's again Russell Wilson's worst games have come against AFC North teams. Mm-hmm. So it's either he's not used to AFC North games yet. This is his second bout against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. I would hope for a cleaner game. But it's going to come down to coaching. Everyone knows the matchup that is the Harbaugh versus Tomlin matchup where it's always split.
Yeah. I think for me, I still think the Steelers offense is still a great offense, but the problem is consistency. And more specifically, when Tomlin, how often he chooses to run. And we've spoke about this a couple years ago, where before I think at the arrival of Najee, or maybe prior to the arrival of Najee, where it's like he's not choosing to run the ball very frequently. And I remember we spoke about that a lot. And I think that in those games that you look at where the Steelers offense, really suffers. And I'm just looking at the stats right here against the Eagles, right? It's like if the team gets ahead, right, and goes up big, obviously you're more inclined to pass than you are to run. And I think that is doing a disservice to the team because let's be honest, the Steelers, it's like their offense derives off the run game. You derive off Najee being that engine and Jaylen Warren getting you those tough yards in the backfield, making it easier for Russell Wilson or Justin Fields in the pass game. And I'm looking at the stats. Obviously, we know the Eagles went up early on the Steelers, right? But looking at the rush attempts, right? Najee only had 6 carries for 14 yards. Russell Wilson 4, and those were scrambles for 13 yards. Jaylen Warren 4 touches for 12 yards. And I know, again, it gets them away, but committing to the running game will ultimately keep you alive within the game, especially if you're a running team. And that's a big reason, or one of the reasons why we lost to you guys in the first round when we came to Pittsburgh. When you guys went up ahead of us and Tucker missed those kicks and we stayed behind, we kind of got a little antsy and we abandoned the run from Derrick Henry. So we only gave him, I think it was like 16 touches. And you know me, I'm like, give this man 25 fucking touches. Like,
give him a third of the touches.
Give this man more touches. And it's like, I would rather see Henry get more touch. Like, he get 25 touches and Lamar gets like 25 pass attempts. Balance. And I think that's that's the Ravens offense at its best, is when it's like rushing and passing are like on equal levels. But abandoning the run definitely hurt us against you guys in the first game. I think that both this game in particular, both coaches are determined to run the ball against the other. And I'd like to see that against both teams.
Yeah, 100%. These teams are, that's always how it starts, is it's the feel out period, right? You get the feel it especially when it comes to these two teams, and it's going to be you're going to see a little bit of old school football come through. You're going to see the north-south run from both teams. The feel out process, where it's just going to be smash mouth up and down the field, and it's going to be first one to score is going to get answered immediately. This game, and that's what you need to expect. It's what you need to prepare for, and it's preparing for just another round of, I hate to say, just piss poor officiating. So we're going to have to find a way to play around it, just with how poor it's been across the board all year.
I agree with you. It's been poor. What upsets me is that the Ravens, a lot of their penalties are deserved. Like a lot of the penalties for the Ravens, I looked at
Steelers too, no doubt.
Too, yeah. But I mean,
Roderick Jones is a walking fucking penalty this year.
Shit, bro. I mean, so fucking the Ravens, man. It's fucking absolutely, like, Ronnie Stanley, man. Just absolutely just keeps getting penalties and penalties every fucking game. It's, to me, and I looked at the stats just to kind of see how much it is. So the Ravens are the most penalized team in the league. That was not a surprise, especially last week against the Giants. We had 12 penalties for 112 penalty yards.
Against the Giants.
And there was one drive in particular. We literally gave them the drive because we just gave up 40 yards of fucking field. And so the Ravens, I wrote it down. We have 117 penalties.
Oh my God.
For 997 yards. Just rounded up to 1,000 yards of penalty yards. Absolutely deplorable. And I cannot say that was not unearned by the Ravens. That is one thing that has been made me lose faith each game I'm watching this season, where it's like we're just committing dumb ass fucking penalties for the stupid on third down out of all downs, giving it.
You go offsides on third down.
Offsides on third down. Pass interference. Pass interference is like the biggest one. Holding. Right. Illegal formation on offense, and it's just it's so frustrating. And I agree with you. Yes, the officiating has been horrible this year. It has not been consistent per team. And I think that, and per team and per player, and per officiating crew, where it's like a lot of teams nowadays they have to do film on the officiating crew and get
Right.
stats on. It's like, okay, this guy calls holding calls very frequently. This guy calls pass interference calls very frequently. And obviously it's like it's weird when it's like you have to also game plan for the officials. It feels weird, but it's something that teams practice actually. And teams actually do practice like knowing who's going to be on the field with them.
Yeah, no, and it's crazy that this is how the game has evolved to, where it's now you have to prepare for, like, if you have an officiating crew that's defensive penalty heavy, you have to prepare to work around that. Or an officiating crew that's offensive penalty heavy, where they're looking to throw the flag on the receiver, or they're looking to throw the flag for an offsides or an illegal hand to the face.
Yep.
You look down the offensive line, you will find an illegal hand to the face every single time, and I will promise you that.
Mm-hmm.
Every single time you will find a hold. Every single
Every
time
time.
you will find.
Oh, yeah.
Every single time. You look at the receivers, every single time you will find a push.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what happens. It's the flow of the game. It's how it goes. It's the same thing as finding travels in basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But it's having to work around the officiating crew that hyper focus on simple things.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be a lot of fine-tuned playing that's going to come into this game.
Well, let's also be honest too, and the officiating actually does kind of subside a little bit once playoffs hit. That's when like a lot of the officiating, a lot of penalties that we would see in the regular season too, are not always called in the playoffs. And I think it's
Well, that's because there's only a select few officiating crews that get picked for the off season,
Mhm.
for the postseason.
Mhm.
You know, you have the whole regular season officiating team, and then you get the postseason crew.
Yeah.
You know, it's those who, I guess it must be by jury of your peers.
I think
how you get picked for the postseason.
I think a lot of it is experience. They
experience, I guess, like some type of seniority list.
Yeah, they'll typically go with like the people that have been doing it for longer. That's why you'll see like typically what it says like head referee, been doing it for like 11 years, 13 years, or something like that. So they'll put that there. But I just whenever in any game of football, I always just want the teams to win, and I hope that one of our teams wins and not the ref. And I hope that a lot of games going forward. We've had a lot of games this year that have more remembered for the interference of the ref or the non-interference by the ref. It's very weird.
Right.
It's all in context, right? But I hope for this game, obviously, the less flags, the better. But because the players need to decide this game, not the officiating crew, and especially this game.
And I hope that whoever put this game together, when it comes to the officiating crew and whatnot, they go into it with the mindset of, you need to let these two play, because there is a lot riding on it. You guys cannot stick your fingers in the way of what these two teams need to do. There is a lot of business that needs to be handled here between both teams right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, for all the marbles, for the division, for again home field advantage, a home field advantage in the playoffs, that is huge too, right? Because at the moment, as it stands, obviously the Steelers hold the 3rd seed in the AFC, and if playoffs were to end today, we would be going to Houston, and you guys would have the Broncos coming to you guys. So
it's a winnable game.
So that'd be those would both be great games, right? I know Ravens Houston, we're actually getting that on Christmas Day. So
that's going to be exciting.
That's going to be a really good game to watch as well. And it's crazy too to play a team potentially in the playoffs, 2 weeks prior you played them. So it has happened before. It happened last year with the Texans and the Browns. Texans and the Browns played in December, and then they also played in the wild card weekend. So that was a fun matchup. But getting back to this game right here, Chris Palmer, we got a lot on the line. We're calling it the Babyface Bowl.
That's a nice beard you got there, my friend.
I like your beard too, my friend. I was gonna say, how confident are you feeling in your Steelers?
I'm willing to put my beard on the table that the Steelers will beat the Ravens this week. If the Steelers lose, the next episode we record, I will have a baby face. That is my wager to you, friend.
And I'd have to wager the same if the Ravens lose. I gotta come in babyface next episode. Have a babyface Christmas.
Babyface Christmas. Gentleman's agreement?
A gentleman's agreement. Let's do it, baby. Let's absolutely fucking do it.
For those who don't know, I have not had a baby face probably in about 4 years from one time I fucked my beard up. Other than that, I have not had a baby face since I'm about 18 years old.
I just want to say, too, just the fact, like, literally prior to the episode, we were just absolutely fucking dying laughing at the fact. We're like, Shayna was like, why don't you guys make a wager? We don't wager. Unless. Something that we thought of. But you know what? I'm totally with it because that's a lot of fun.
It's going to be fun.
And honestly, too, again, with so much writing on this game, I believe that the Ravens will win because we have to win this game. It's one of those games where it's like we have to prove to ourselves that we can reach those aspirations that, we set for ourselves, right? We were obviously, compared to last year, we're underperforming, but at the same time, it's like, no, our offense is great. Our offense is absolutely on a historic pace right now. It's our defense has been really killing us. Tucker has been killing us this year, and we've been killing ourselves with penalties. And I think that it was nice to see our defense step up and only limit the Giants to 14. I want to see the Ravens do it against the Steelers. Have that low-scoring affair again, but clean up everything and learn from the last go-about. Run the ball more, man. Tucker, hope you got your reps in, man. I hope you got those reps in. Shout out to Chris Boswell, too, because he's been absolutely fucking killing it this year for you guys.
He's been an absolute ace this year, man, and it's like...
He could just be a Hall of Fame kicker.
I've always known him as a great kicker. I've always liked Chris Boswell. He had a couple of off... You can call them off years, but he was still in the high 90s for percentage. Mm-hmm. So it's like he never really had an off year, but this year he is an ace. He is what Justin Tucker was for you guys.
Oh yeah,
2 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and for the past 11 years. But even now, as it's getting later in the year and Justin Tucker's healing up, he's still showing that he is more capable than not to make those field goals. So he's not to be underestimated moving forward. That's for sure. The major hole for you guys, of course, is that pass defense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But now our problem is we have no Calvin Austin and we have no George Pickens.
Oh,
so
Pickens
now
is out?
He's out right now.
Ooh, okay.
He is. I don't think he is expected to play Sunday. He has not practiced.
Okay.
So Saturday rather. Mm-hmm. I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
So our pass game is more or less depleted. So just like you on the other side, you got to run the ball. You got to run the ball, and you got to run the ball effectively. You have 2 young running backs, one of which is on a 5th-year option. So you either need to let him cook or you need to let him go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about Najee Harris. And Jalen Warren, you still have him on a rookie deal, and it's you need to either let him showcase or you need to work in tandem.
And I gotta say too, Najee, he has the same running style as Derrick Henry too. He's a north-south runner. He's a power runner, and
he played underneath him in Alabama.
Exactly. So it's funny to see Derrick Henry and Najee kind of go at it.
They're like carbon copies of each other. Yeah, it's weird to watch.
But it's so great to see too, because it's so the epitome of the Ravens-Steelers rivalry, right? Because we've said it before for the last 4 years that we've been doing this podcast. These teams are so alike in each other's way. It's kind of like a mirror match almost every time. Stakes are high, As it should be.
It's from calling it this year to seeing it where it is now. It's just every year, man. It's every year it determines the division.
But CP, hey, it's been a hell of a ride having it with you, my son. It's been an honor every time we get it. It's so great to get these games with you.
Listen, to me, it's the greatest rivalry in professional sports.
Of course.
And that's no bullshit. In all professional sports, this is the greatest rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
It has the greatest coaching. It has the greatest defense skill preparation. It has the greatest offensive preparation going forward. It has the greatest amount of energy going in all of professional sports. There is not one that compares.
Also, I just want to say, fuck the schedule makers for not making either of these games prime time.
Right? How do you have
crime.
2 Saturday games and not make one of them at night?
I mean, I get it that this one is going to be like
the matinee game.
Yeah.
But even still, like, you got to put one of these under the lights.
Mm-hmm.
One of them you have to put under the lights. Like, what?
Well, I mean, it is a solo stage game. It is getting darker now, so I guess that does technically
the
count
fourth
as,
quarter will be in the dark.
No, I mean, like, it starts at 4, so it'll probably be in the dark by the end of the first quarter. But I think, again, these games demand to be on prime time, and they demand to be under the lights. And I'm kind of glad that it is on a Saturday and not lost on the Sunday. And that's funny because, like, looking at it too, I didn't write down that was on Saturday, so I was like, I thought that was still on Sunday. I was like, well, I'm like, oh no, okay, it makes a little bit more sense now. It also makes sense too that literally all the 4 teams that are playing on Saturday are also playing on Christmas.
Yeah, just flip flops.
Yep. So
it's weird. They just spun the wheel. They were like,
they were very deliberate with that, but schedule makers, again, every time, just put this
maybe
on
next
prime
year.
time.
Right. You could. This is always worthy of a primetime showing because there's not a single person who does not want to watch a Steelers-Ravens football game.
And if you don't want to watch that, then you don't know football. I'm sorry to say.
Well, it's not that you don't know football. It's not even that you don't know football. It's just that it's just good entertainment. At the end of the day, it's just good TV. Like, you want to watch a sport be played at one of the most competitive levels,
the highest level
that it can be played at.
Mm-hmm.
Even when it comes to talent, like even when we didn't have the players that we had, and it was like two middle of the road teams going at it. You know what I'm saying? Where it was like, we just had an offense and you just had a defense, and our defense was middle of the road, your offense was middle of the road, but it was like we still met in the middle and kept it to 1-point possessions.
CP, don't think for a second that it ain't possible for a round 3.
Dude, I've been saying 3 rounds all year.
It's very possible
that we meet in the divisional round, but we have to get our first win under the belt.
It may not be probable, right? But
it's possible.
It is definitely possible that we can get a round 3 Ravens Steelers, and man, I'm all for that.
listen, postseason Baltimore is nothing to be trifled with. The Steelers in the postseason still has yet to be seen. But with Russell Wilson apparently getting his swagger back, I want to see them in the postseason. I want to see how they do.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but it starts with this win. If we can clinch home field advantage, it would be enormous going into the postseason.
Oh yeah, and I'm excited for this game. I mean, that goes without saying, but I am really excited for this game.
Yeah, I can't wait for this game.
Oh man, so there you have it, guys. That is our Steelers Ravens rivalry week. You know we love this week. We love talking about it. Be sure to watch our part 2 of this week with our special guest Alex Kliss, where we'll be talking Broncos and Chargers. Until then, we hope you have a safe and happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. Have a good one. Spend it with your loved ones, your family. And yeah, see if you want to wish them a happy Hanukkah and everything.
Yes, hope everyone has a safe and happy Christmas. Enjoy every holiday that comes around.
Mm-hmm.
And until we return, we will see you guys next year.